Why the muted response? Let's just get that out of the way now.
Yeah, that's been the pattern the last few quarters. It doesn't matter how good Nvidia results are. The stock, it doesn't necessarily react positively to earnings. A big reason for that is that we actually knew that Nvidia would report this type of result a month ago when Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta reported. Those companies drive more than half of Nvidia's revenue, really. And so we knew that as those companies continue to spend on capex, continue to increase capex, Nvidia would do well. The stock is up since then, which tells you that that was reflected in the stock. And today they just delivered the formality, or last night they delivered the formality. But mind you, very good results. Beat, raise, staggeringly high numbers. They talked about selling 20 billion of standalone CPUs this year. That was zero last year. So their opportunity continues to grow. There was nothing bad about last night's result. It was all good. It's just that investors already knew that was coming.
Okay, so 90 billion, exceeding 90 billion for their revenue for the next quarter. Is that achievable? You just mentioned about that 20 billion. So is that achievable then?
Yeah, and in fact, over the last few months, the company's given us much more visibility than in the past. They've talked about $1 trillion cumulative business for Blackwell and Rubin, which means that they can continue to grow at these rates well into next year. And that's something that as investors get more comfortable with, they'll appreciate NVIDIA more. NVIDIA is already trading in the low 20s on forward earnings. It's unlikely that they'll trade at any less than that next year, and their earnings will be at least 50% higher. So that's why this is such a good setup for NVIDIA. They have more visibility than ever, and the stock is trading at the very low end of its historical multiple range.
All right, and you mentioned Vera Rubin. What makes it so unique, and is there anybody even threatening it right now to compete with it?
It's just much more performant in the sense that you can get a lot more tokens per dollar, which ultimately is what is important for AI, both mostly on the inference side, is what does it cost you to create a token, to drive AI, and their products continue to stay ahead of the competition. All AMD and Broadcom and the proprietary chips from the hyperscalers can do is try to keep up and at least for some applications have a slightly lower price point because NVIDIA is just much more performant with every generation of new semis that they introduce, new GPUs, and again, new CPUs as well. So they're staying ahead of the competition, and that's really the story of Vera Rubin, is that by the time the other chips catch up to Blackwell, NVIDIA shows up with Vera Rubin.
And with that, can AI replace these chips? Could somehow NVIDIA be replaced by AI?
Well,
I went on a tangent there for a second.
All of us.
I went on a tangent for a second.
Can replace all of us. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, NVIDIA doesn't actually own its manufacturing plants. If you distill what NVIDIA does, they make a very complicated design file that they send to TSMC in Taiwan to manufacture. So could at some point AI be so good that it can design a better file and do that instead of NVIDIA or for NVIDIA? That's possible. But again, at that point, none of us have a job anyway, so we won't even have to talk about it.
Well, you and I are sitting on a beach then and talking about this, hopefully.
There is clearly, an issue with sentiment for NVIDIA. I mean, the fundamentals are extremely strong, so it's clearly not like the issue is clearly not there. They're reporting, a quarter above expectations. They're guiding above. The forecasts are just barely in line with the order visibility, that Jensen shared at GTC in March 2026. So it doesn't imply any upside, any new orders, relative to GTC. So that actually leaves room for some further revisions. And if you take, even these earnings that leave room for further revisions, NVIDIA is actually trading on 18 times 2027 EPS that corresponds to these orders, that NVIDIA has already booked. So clearly the issue is with sentiment. And so now I think the interesting question to ask is, what would drive a re-rating? And I think that the debate is actually shifting now to 2028. Everybody's concerned that, we might be in a bubble, that, NVIDIA's revenues and margins potentially could fall off a cliff, beyond 2027. And actually, we already start to have some visibility beyond 2028.
Most importantly now is a focus in terms of the CPU and how important this is to the workloads as well. And we have the ability not only to just be inside Grace Blackwell, as well as what we have in terms of our systems with Vera Rubin. We now have an opportunity to also have what we call a standalone CPU and selling that. We have customers already looking at that opportunity to provide standalone along with our Vera Rubin and our Grace Blackwell together. That together, we believe for this year can be a total of about $20 billion worth of.
And Antoine, I wanted to ask you about this because it seemed like on the call maybe that they were just talking about the $20 billion visibility this year as the standalone, but Colette clarified that it's the standalone and the CPU inside the Grace Blackwell. Either way, I'm curious how you're thinking about that CPU market opportunity as an investor.
Well, I think they were clear on the call that it's the overall opportunity for them. It's still a very, very large number, definitely. It means that, on latest projections that NVIDIA's server CPU business is going to capture, more than 30% share in 2026. Now, that has to be put in context of two things. First, of course, you have like an inflection in CPU demand. You have these agents now that are performing tasks on our behalf. They're starting like a web browser in a server. They're like running a search, for example. All that kind of workload runs on CPUs, and that's inflecting. And so the overall market might actually end up being bigger than what people were projecting. And number two, near term, everything's gated by supply. And NVIDIA had access to a lot of supply. They've booked a lot of supply for their GPUs. And so they have more wafers, for example, that they could potentially reallocate to CPUs as needed. So it's a very large number, but it doesn't necessarily mean, that others are not competitive like AMD, ARM and Intel.
In China, do they need to crack that market or are they going to be good without it?
Well, it's a quarter of the global market, so they very much would like it to be part of their market long term. In the short term, they're just caught in this back and forth between the US government and the Chinese government about whether they can sell even degraded last generation chips. And at some point, the US government agrees and the Chinese don't, and then the Chinese don't agree and the US does. So it's been just back and forth for several months. Right now, none of us have Chinese sales in any of our NVIDIA expectations. But longer term, they do want to participate in the market. Again, it's a quarter of the global market.
And are the Chinese chips closer, getting closer?
They're getting closer, but it's the same thing. NVIDIA runs so fast that as the Chinese catch up to the last generation, NVIDIA comes up with the next generation. But they will address the domestic need in China because NVIDIA has been shut out of that market, and that helps them grow to scale and get better. And that's what NVIDIA doesn't want, is that it doesn't want this to be making Chinese semi companies better and bigger, and then using that leverage to sell outside of China. That's why NVIDIA wants to continue to sell even degraded chips into China in order to prevent the Chinese industry from developing to a point where they are competitors on a global scale.
All right, and NVIDIA, they're trying to diversify, and how important is that?
Yeah, so NVIDIA really controls the whole ecosystem. They're really the orchestrator of the great data center build out. They have had this foresight about how quickly it would come to be. So they've coordinated with TSMC in making the chips, with the memory companies, Hynix, Samsung, Micron, for delivering enough memory. And then they quietly decided that they're going to sell CPUs on a standalone basis because they anticipated that using AI in an agentic manner would require a lot more CPUs. They have networking equipment. They're working with the optical companies. They're the ones orchestrating the whole build out because they have all this foresight. And that allows them to participate in the most significant way and be in the middle of the build out, which means in the middle of the AI.
What did you like about this NVIDIA quarter, and what's just lacking in your view? Actually, Brian, I liked most of it. I disagree that we've seen signs of a slowdown. Right now for their next fiscal year, after this enormous growth this year, the street's expecting about 30% growth top and bottom line. I expect that to be beaten, and I expect that to be beaten significantly. And with a stock here that trades at only 19 times next year's earnings, which I think are low, I think whoever says it's a value stock, whether it be Jensen Huang or anybody else, I think they're actually right.
Paul, you bring up a good point. I love opposing views. That's why we have you on here. You always give it to us straight. Is it good enough? And I can't even believe I'm saying this about Nvidia. I mean, it's gotten so big and it's so important to the chain that this company is only growing the top line by 30% plus. Or is this a market still stuck in the past with Nvidia and they want to see those 50, 60, 100% growth rates that they were delivering?
Well, we'll get that, Brian, for a couple more quarters. They just guided to a quarter well above the street, but that's pretty much standard fare for them. And that indicates that this next quarter is going to have about 100% growth year to year. So it's a acceleration in sequential and year to year growth. So we'll see what happens. But I, again, think that the numbers are lower. And I felt very good about the gross margin, 75%. Guiding towards another 75%. And the fact that we now have a very big CPU business, in addition to GPUs with the Vera platform, this could be really exciting. I think it's very important. When they talk about returning capital to shareholders, I never really care about a dividend for a tech company. That usually is the death sentence. But the continued stock buybacks, and the fact that they've really sprinkled the infield, as you said before, Brian, with a number of investments, and these are billions of dollars investments in private and public companies. Like, for example, I cover all of the neo clouds formerly, and they have a big stake in CoreWeave and Iran and Nebius. And what they plan to do over time, and maybe they get a valuation multiple lift if they're successful, is they are trying to build well beyond the GPUs, an entire AI ecosystem, so they control more and more of the AI data centers, just like Apple did with the walled garden. And if they become indispensable like that, I think there's a lot of room on the upside for this time.
$91 billion, plus or minus 2% in the second quarter. It was like almost the whisper number for the sell side and the buy side, but not enough, and why is that?
Hey, look, I think that the growth at this scale is just unprecedented. I don't think the market's ever seen anything like it. And I think if you think about traditional semi-investors, the playbook is to sell this type of growth, right? Because it's not sustainable. The margins have peaked. But I think if you really look at what's going on at the driver of the driver, like what's going on in the end demand, I think it's like really phenomenal in terms of agentic AI really taking off. The time of work or like time of task is expanding instead of being one shot or the agent working for a few minutes. I think we're going to go towards like months of work, and that requires like a lot of compute to have an agent go off and like complete a task and think and be persistent. And then this other thing is I think that scaling laws continue to hold. Like the frontier models are getting better. The more compute you throw at it, the better they get, and you actually save money by being on the frontier because it doesn't go through so many rabbit holes in terms of trying to complete your task. So I think if you look at like the end demand, it's actually very encouraging, and I think we're climbing a wall of worry here as a result.
So the thing that I was trying to digest throughout the call is with the data points that Jensen Huang and Colette Kress put forward as evidence of that, right? The scaling laws and the dollar per token. And they go to this $1 trillion figure, which I think they clarified is Blackwell Rubin, and it's for calendar year 2025 to 2027. And it's basically a backlog. Right, but the main overarching point is that they would argue that Nvidia's own growth is trending ahead of even the hyperscale capex growth. How do you model for that? Like, is that the math that you would do?
Yeah, one of the things that was really encouraging, I think, of the quarter is that I actually broke out like hyperscale versus the enterprise and sovereign. And so, I think the bear case is that, NVIDIA can't outgrow the hyperscale capex numbers, but there's all this new TAM that's emerging that's not hyperscale. And I think they continue to do well in hyperscale, but there's also new areas of agentic enterprise adoption. I think you look at talk to financial services firms, they're adopting a lot of this end demand that NVIDIA is producing. And so I think that plus robotics that's on the to come in the future, I think that allows them to see not be bracketed in this like hyperscale kind of compute paradigm here.
Tony, slightly unusual situation, but I spoke to Jensen at some length on Monday prior to earnings. But actually, a lot of what he said about the demand-supply equation was very prescient, salient. Just listen to what he said.
We have the largest supply chain in the world. Our partners have done a great job securing supply for us. And so all of the pieces go together. The silicon photonics is lined up. Everything is all lined up. It's just that the demand is much greater than the overall capacity of the world.
What do you make of NVIDIA earnings? It seems like they're crushing it, but the bar is just so high and they've already gotten so big.
That's right. They did crush it. They'll continue to crush it. The highlight of the earnings yesterday was Jensen Huang dunking on the competition. He made a point to dunk on AMD and Broadcom by saying there's an entire segment of his business where they don't have any competition. Apart from the companies that dabble in their own chips, the entire rest of the market is 100% NVIDIA. Then he proceeded to dunk on the CPU companies, Intel and AMD, by talking about the fact that in a year, they're going to grow their standalone CPU business from nothing to 20 billion. And then he ended by dunking on Cerebras by saying that the market for hyperspeed inference is actually tiny, in spite of the fact that he's also in that market. So NVIDIA is doing really well. It's the core of the AI trade, and it'll continue to be the core of the AI trade.
The Jalen Brunson of corporate America, just dumping on everyone. Joe, if I can bring you in, I actually want to kind of relate this to SpaceX, because it's a point that Mandeep Singh made of Bloomberg Intelligence that I thought was good. You have SpaceX valued at $2 trillion. It's going to be priced, theoretically, if it gets there, at 80 times sales. It's growing at something like 20%, whereas you have NVIDIA priced at 17 times sales, or forward earnings, and it's growing at 85%. How do you digest with these giant tech companies coming to market about what you're actually willing to pay?
Well, Danny, it's astounding. And then you put OpenAI and Anthropic on the heels of that, and their growth rates are extraordinary as well. I mean, just highlighting something else that Gil, or adding on to what Gil was talking about, like the networking business inside of NVIDIA was lost in all the conversation. They're at $15 billion in revenue for their networking equipment. That puts them on a run rate equal to Qualcomm. I mean, and that's just an also-ran business inside of NVIDIA. So Jensen talked about the AI factory at the GTC, and it's coming to life.
By the way, so they're expected to have $370 billion in annual sales. So at $5.4 trillion, they're only trading at 14.5 times.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sales, and about 20 times forward earnings,
yes,
right?
You're right.
On a 12-month basis.
Again, compared to SpaceX, which would be 80 times sales.
Joe, Jensen continues to dangle, though, this $1 trillion figure for revenue, right? Is that 25 through 27? Are they on track to hit that?
All signs point to yes, Matt. I mean, it is astounding that Jensen can just trot out this crazy number that year over year is 100% bigger than he said the year before, and he's on a runway to hit it. And Matt, I think the other interesting component here about their moat is the lockdown that they have on TMC production. The moat is not silicon. The moat is the packaging, and as a consequence, it's clean rooms is where the packaging occurs. They are consuming almost 2/3 of all the packaged chips coming out of TSMC. So if you're trying to get Google chips, if you're trying to get Trainium chips from Amazon, how are they going to make them?
They all get made in the same place, which is the most interesting thing there.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the supply chain risk within that.